Welcome to another episode of Culture8 Podcast, brought to you by Ezini, your trusted partner in building thriving workplace cultures. Here we explore the intricate and dynamic world of organizational culture, uncovering insights and strategies to help leaders and teams foster environments where people and businesses can grow together. In this episode, we explore how organizations can embed culture change through talent strategies and performance models. Today, we are talking with Edie Goldberg, founder of Goldberg Associates. Edie brings decades of experience in human resource, talent management, and transformation, and she'll share actionable insights on aligning cultures, agile practices, and organizational performance. Welcome to the podcast, Edie. It's an honor to host you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here with everybody.
Awesome. What is the most exciting with your work these days?
Well, that would probably be the fact that I have a book coming out in March called Performance Enablement. So I'm really excited. You know, people said, it's not my first book, but people said, this is the book that I always thought you would write, because I've been doing work in performance management for decades.
Yes.
And it's really a science-backed book about why performance management is broken and what we need to do differently. So I'm really excited. And my colleagues have said, this is the book that we all need. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Fascinating. And I can't wait to read all about it. And in fact, just thinking about that, I have a question down there. We're going to speak about that for sure. Before taking a deep dive into your views and beliefs about organizational culture, I would like to ask you a question, just to allow our audience to get to know you. What was your very first job?
My very first job. Okay, well, I'm going to answer this in two different ways. My very first job was scooping ice cream. I was not of legal age to be working, so I learned a lot around that. But that was my very first job. But my first, now I have to say this, my first kind of real job in my field was with something that was called the Navy Personnel Research and Development Center that was in San Diego, where I worked when I was both an undergrad and then in my master's program doing applied research. I actually taught total quality management. I ran quality circles. I was trained by Dr. Deming himself in total quality management. So that was probably my first kind of real job. And then post PhD, my first job was with a Bay Area management consulting firm called Core Corporation.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So let's take a deep dive now. And I know you've written that traditional performance reviews are really broken. What's the core shift you believe organizations need to make to move from performance reviews to performance enablement?
My co-author, Alan Colquette, and I talk about this really as being, it's a paradigm shift. It's not, you don't have to change your form. You don't have to change the rating scale. That's not going to do anything. Kind of at the core of what I ask people is, what is the purpose of performance management in your company? And for most people, the purpose of performance management is to figure out pay. So I say compensation hijacked your performance management bus.
Yes.
And it's really just been an instrument for pay. But if you want performance management to be, how do we raise individual and organizational performance, you have to approach it completely differently. So that's kind of my core thing, is it's really a mindset shift around what are you doing to enable performance? What do we know from science about what truly motivates and inspires great performance? And the carrots and sticks that we've used in the past around incentivizing performance. And I'll say I'm largely speaking to, a white collar population here, and I'm going to put sales aside because salespeople are a little different. Yeah. But for the most part, people are motivated by doing interesting work, by having great personal success, great personal achievement. That next increase in my bonus, that's not like throughout the year what drives me.
Yeah.
And, if we think more about what are we doing to encourage that individual, what are we doing to support them, what are we doing to help them to learn and grow, that is what's going to catapult performance, not, if you get a 4 or a 5 on your rating scale, you're going to get a little bit more because, truthfully, bonus pools aren't all that big anymore. Yeah. And there's not a huge difference after taxes of
Yeah.
what people get paid. So it's about truly thinking about what are the mechanisms that we're using to inspire, align, and drive performance.
I love it. Absolutely. I think main point is to what you're saying is really you have really not really paid justice to the whole performance of our employees by equating it to the pay. And to your point, yes, a little bit of increase of pay is not really going to increase my motivation to. And I always use this analogy about motorcycles and how can you push forward if you can get back behind, push it forward. That's your payment and perks, right? But if you increase the intrinsic motivation, which is basically put gas into it, turn the ignition on, throttle, it'll go far, it'll go very quickly, and it'll be something that's what you need. So that's the main point, like the getting how do we get the intrinsic motivation out of our people?
Let me just build on that for a second. I was just giving a keynote speech for a big company about kind of transformation and what was going to help them. And, for this company in particular, every company is different. The power of purpose and meaning at work
Hmm.
is one of those like motivating powers that if you can connect people, you help people understand, I don't have to be, curing cancer to have purpose and meaning in my work, but doing something that's meaningful that helps people, society, anything. And if I can help people connect the line of sight
Yeah.
between the work that they do and the purpose that our company is trying to achieve, that is so intrinsically, as you said, motivating
Yes.
to an employee of like, they get it. They understand, why the work that they do is really important. And that's what drives performance. That's what sets people on fire. That's what, gets people up in the morning. And so I want to see more of that.
No, absolutely. And I think if my audience would have gone through my episodes, I always bring up this conversation. I heard Kathleen Hogan from Microsoft talk about. She was the previous CHRO. You don't work for Microsoft until Microsoft works for you. Primarily, that use the Microsoft platform to align your ambitions, your dreams to get to. Fantastic. But there was another part that I wanted to say, but I'll leave it. I did read this book by Edgar H. Sheehan. It's the organizational psychology, and he talks about what drives the performance. In fact, even it's something to do with the social learning, which is more driver of the employee's performance rather than just the payment structure and stuff. So, thank you. Let's move on. In your view, how does the talent ecosystem need to evolve so that the organization becomes really future ready? What role does culture play in that?
So I love that question because it kind of ties together my two books, right? Talking about performance enablement versus my prior book was a book called The Inside Gig, which is about internal talent mobility.
Right.
And, so when you ask the question of, what drives an organization, what is it about a talent ecosystem that helps a company be future ready? It's about helping people to learn and grow because skill
Yeah.
sets today are changing so incredibly quickly.
Yes.
And so organizations, well, business is changing on a dime. So we need to be agile and we need to be able to, be flexible and move around and do different things. But people need to be constantly learning. My personal mantra, always be learning, right? That's just so important for people. And so to have talent systems and performance management or performance enablement being one of those key ones, but to have your talent systems aligned to facilitate that kind of personal growth and learning. Internal talent mobility is one of those practices that encourages people to take on projects kind of outside of your day job, if you will. It's a learning opportunity, whether you're doing something that's just kind of outside the scope of your work, you're
Yeah.
working with a different manager. That's a learning experience. You're working with different people. You're learning from their perspective. And, maybe you're doing something that helps you pick up a new skill. So I think these new talent strategies that we have, both focusing on learning and growth and more agile talent systems that do help employees to experiment and learn beyond kind of the routine parts of their day-to-day job.
Right.
I think those are really, really important for helping people to learn and grow. So it's about reskilling, and it's about, constantly reskilling. And then from a culture perspective, you just brought up Kathleen Hogan, right? Microsoft is the poster child of having a growth mindset. So that is the cultural element underlying all of this, whether it be internal talent mobility or performance enablement, is really the idea that, with effort, we can all learn and grow. We can
Yes.
all improve our performance. We can learn new things. You can teach an old dog new tricks. And that is kind of the culture element.
Yeah.
When Satya Nadella from Microsoft, shifted the culture from being a know-it-all culture to a learn-it-all culture.
Yes.
He really, and that really impacted their performance management process because they were having a lot of issue, and I talk about this in my book. They were having a lot of issues because their performance management system was set up as a very competitive process. Thus, individuals would hoard information
Yeah.
because my success, enabled me to achieve more than you. So,
Yes.
by withholding information, I was ensuring I would get that bigger payout. And when he moved to a learn it all organization and the idea that teams, and this is kind of another big issue that I talk about in my book, most of our work today gets done in a team. Work is so complex today. A
Yes.
single individual does not have responsibility for the entire
Correct.
span of something getting achieved. It takes a village.
Yes.
And so we need to focus on incentivizing the village, not the individual. And so as Microsoft had shifted to become a learn it all organization and more team based, their performance raised, significantly lifted because of that change in culture of being in it together
Yeah.
and learning and growing. That was really, in many respects, a big secret sauce. And there's a lot of strategy involved there too. A big secret sauce to, from a culture perspective, how the organization changed that really set it on a positive trajectory, whereas Microsoft's performance had been hurting for a long time.
For a very long time. And I totally agree. And one of the common themes that I picked up from the two questions that I've asked you and the responses is being always about growth of the individual, continuous learning. I've been harping about this forever as well. And I believe I just recently wrote a post as well. Focus on the manager's job. The leadership's job is to grow the people. And growth isn't just about professional growth. It's actually folks like Kyocera's president and Hanover's leadership. They all talked about not just you need to strive for the higher needs of the human being rather than just keeping on a professional level. So, and another thing in terms of growth is it just doesn't have to be professional. It could be anything. Learn a new skill, learn a new hobby, learn anything which is different, from broadening your mindset, creating new neuron connections within your mind. And lastly, I love that you brought up the fact that the world has become so just completely complex. And I always refer to the complexity book. It's called, by Michel Waldrop, The Science at the Edge of Order and Chaos. He talks about the fact that in this complex world, we cannot just survive by ourselves. We will not grow and succeed. We have to collaborate. It's the nature of complex adaptive systems. They have to collaborate. They will collaborate. And that's what's going to get them to move forward, not by individual aspects of it. So beautiful,
Right.
beautiful stuff. Anything else to add or?
No, I just think that this issue of the collaborative organization is something we haven't paid enough attention to, is,
Right.
how work truly gets done in an organization. And I do think that that will fundamentally shift how we manage performance in the future, particularly now we're managing with, right, AI systems. And so it's people, it's teams, it's AI. How are we all collaborating together?
Right.
And I think as our world of work continues to shift and change, we need to think of different ways of, how do we enable that performance and what are the systems that we create from a management perspective about how we align and drive performance in the organization.
Absolutely. I wanted to bring up, like, I've been reading this book, Organizational Design, as it's just by Robert M. Burton. It's fantastic. It talks about that's the idea, right? We have to figure out new ways, and the way to figure out what the new organizational design is going to be, which includes AI and robots, LB2, depending on various dimensions. So I won't get into that, but I like that part. I think we also discussed this when we were at Nashville conference together, and I remember we talked about this on in front of everybody, was the fact that we need to figure out how do we create a perform. If you're going to think about pay, then it needs to be based on the team performance rather than just one individual performance. So I love that, and in fact, collaboration is such a big part of it. I'm right now focused currently on employee engagement, and even in employee engagement, collaborative shared power with is a big factor of how to increase employee engagement. So that's one of the core pillars of employee engagement, so to speak. All right. So I love it, but beautiful conversation. Thank you for insights. Now, you've spoken about the idea of the world of work that works for all, right? How do leaders embed the inclusivity, the agility, and the adaptability into their cultures so this becomes real?
So I want to share with you the origin story of creating a world of work that works for all. So that's actually a tagline for the SHRM Foundation, which at the time, I might have been the chairperson of the foundation. I've been on that board for 8 years, and that was our mission. Our mission was to create a world of work that works for all. And the inclusivity there really starts, I think, with a focus on skills-based work, when a lot of that work is around how do we create pathways to work for people that perhaps aren't traditional pathways. And for example, most jobs require a 4-year college degree.
Right.
Well, 62% of Americans do not have a college degree. 62% of our population. So if we're having problems filling a job, automatically cutting out 62% of the population makes no sense. Plus, skills are changing so quickly. A lot of people are picking up some of these skills through certifications, not through a 4-year college degree. In fact, I have this funny story of I have this cat sitter, and she graduated from college with a degree. A girl graduated from college with a degree in computer science, could not find a job because she didn't actually have really great digital skills. Like, she didn't know data analytics, and there are all these modern skills that she didn't have because she went to a very traditional program. So here kids are graduating college, but they don't have the hot in-demand skills.
Right.
So a 4-year college degree might be a proxy for I've learned and I know how to learn. But today, to create a more inclusive, diverse, pool of talent, I think looking at skill certification or other demonstrations that somebody has the skills that we need to do the job is the correct way to screen for talent, as opposed to using these blanket proxies, which may not help us in terms of what we exactly need. So if you want somebody with data analytics, they may or may not have learned that in college. I have 8 semesters of advanced statistical training, and what's happening today is far beyond what I learned in college. I graduated like 30 years ago. So, but even shortly after I came out of college, things advanced really quickly.
Yeah.
I think this idea of focusing on skills, and that goes for career advancement as well. We need to make sure that people have the skills that they need to do the job. It all goes back to the learning focus, but that I think is really important to creating a more inclusive future that allows people to come into the workplace because of what they can do.
Yeah.
Not because of their social class. A lot of people can't afford college, and it doesn't mean that they're not smart or they can't learn a new thing. But if I get a certification in a new hot area, even
Mm.
cybersecurity. A lot of the people who are really hot in that area know it through deep certifications, not through stuff they've done in college or on the job.
Yeah, and that's so true. And it's actually, I think probably it was the same place in Nashville that we have this conversation going on. I've heard it even beyond that as well. The fact that our education system, not just ours, in fact, probably across the globe, it's
Yeah.
not ready. It's not in position to deliver the kind of workforce that we need so you're right. Certifications is all we've got. In fact, I'll be honest, I used to be in technology before, not more than 2 years back, but I transitioned because my thought process and my ways of working or my motivation lies more towards people, management, organizational science. That's where, and I picked up a few certificates just because I want to make sure I know what's going on over there. Of course, beyond the books as well, because there's so much to read in books as well.
Yeah. So this question about college and does college necessarily prepare you for what job you're going to take? There's a big struggle right now in the academic world about AI.
Yeah.
And some universities have really embraced it and they're trying to teach their students how to use AI. Other colleges are actually punishing students for using AI, like
I
you're
know.
cheating. And so, this is kind of an example of our world is changing and adapting, and our universities need to change and adapt with them. It used to be that we couldn't use a calculator.
Yeah.
And now we just can do higher math because we can use a calculator. So we can do
Exactly.
different things. And I think, it's the same thing with AI. It'll enable us to do things that we couldn't do before, but we need to learn to think critically with AI.
Yes.
And so thinking about using that within that ecosystem is really important. But just to say using AI is cheating, um, and therefore, you can't use it. We need to facilitate more learning and more curiosity
Yeah.
to help people embrace the power that's possible with AI for good.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you won't believe it, and I'm not going to name the company. A friend of mine who works in this company told me that, and they're a big chip company, CPUs and chips and stuff. They're not even allowed to use AI.
Yeah.
My mind's boggles. Like, how are you like disabling yourself to move forward in the future when you're not allowing your employees to use AI to start coding? Or so it just boggles my mind. And you're right, our education system is not there. I think, and I had this conversation at another conference, and one guy was talking about maybe what we need to do is from high school itself to enable these students to start working in the industries, in the outside, get internship program, not just from colleges, but from high school so that they can start learning about AI and how to use AI in real world scenarios.
Corollary, not exactly the same of what you're talking about. This was really super cool experience. A gentleman at Dow Chemical had read my book, The Inside Gig, and he used the concept to create a gig for every engineering student. So and they are looking at applying that to high schools, but they're using it right now at the college level with
Yeah.
the idea that people don't understand how to apply what they're learning in college in a business context.
Yes.
And sure, it helps the company kind of screen and look for great talent that they might want to hire. But it provides an invaluable learning experience for the student.
Yes.
And he actually got a huge recognition from the Chemical Engineers Association,
I love it.
their annual conference, for this idea of creating a gig for every engineering student. So it is a great idea and a great way to help educate people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can do
100%.
the same thing with AI.
All right, let's try to change a little bit of gear. What are the most common blockers that you see that prevent these transformation efforts, right? So whether it's culture or it's talent or being agile from delivering the intended outcomes.
Well, as you know, the statistic is that 70% of all transformations fail, and they
Yeah.
don't fail because of a poor strategy. They fail because of people and culture issues.
Yes.
Always comes down to people and culture. I think a big part of that is alignment. There's a lot of what we say versus what we do
Yep.
that gets in the way there.
Yep.
Generally, it's a leadership issue. So I was working on a huge culture change project with a large global company, and they knew what kind of some of the negative attributes of the culture that they wanted to change. But when it came down to it, it was senior leadership that was getting in the way
Mm.
of, living that transformation.
Right.
If you want, to put more decision-making power in the hands of individuals because you want to increase speed of decision-making in the organization because speed is important today, ruling with an iron fist from the top does not help. And, that all decisions have to roll up and then roll back down. It's too slow for how companies operate today. So we need to empower teams more, the work from the agile space, the agile manifesto around, building small empowered teams
Yep.
that can learn, learn and iterate and solve a problem really quickly. That is, a whole different model than our traditional hierarchical organization structures. And when you're a big global company, the tendency is to be much more hierarchical. And that's not wrong. That is the way we've operated for over 100 years.
Yeah.
It's what gave us consistency and great safety records. A lot of good things have come from that, but the pace at which organizations need to operate today,
Yeah.
those models don't create enough agility. And so we need to think of new models. And so in my experience, it's more that governance happens in that traditional hierarchy, but
Yeah.
the day-to-day work gets done in small dynamic teams that are empowered to make decisions. So if you ask me kind of what gets in the way of transformation, it tends to be this culture that holds all the power at the top, this slow decision making, or leaders not role modeling the new behaviors that you're espousing within the organization.
Beautifully said. And I think it reminds me of this conversation I heard about. I think you probably know about Erin Myers, the author of No Rules Rules with Reed Hastings, and she was talking about in one of the podcasts the way we need to think about organizations is not like a triangle anymore. It should be more like an inverted triangle or maybe like a tree, where the roots are the leadership that provides that boundary on the context, and then it goes up the chain or up the tree in the trunks and branches, which are your executive leadership, managers and stuff, providing clarity around that boundary and context. And then the leaf node is where the value creators are, the ones that have the maximum information. You allow them to make those decisions, those multi-million-dollar deals. And it also brings me to the thought about what I keep talking about is the fact that what I talk to my clients is about decentralization. Of course, organizational structures, the design has to be such that you allow for it, but decentralization where you think about the analogy of a body, right? In the body, the immune system does not have a CEO. It's the cells within the body itself. You see a cut, the immune cells would start working towards, they sense it, adapt, and start creating situations that will start to heal that hand or heal that wound. So it's that information which shouldn't be going up to chain because what's the point? The decision making needs to go down or wherever, like if you think about the tree, going towards where the information lies. That's where the interaction is happening with the clients.
Very interesting analogy. But yes, I believe that people are the people who are closest to the work are the ones who can most reimagine what has to be done because they understand that they need context from the broader system about how everything interconnects.
Yes.
But we do need to push that decision making down further.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. One last question, and then we'll switch over to rapid round. What is the one piece of advice you'd give to leaders about fostering a positive organizational culture?
Boy, think about how you'd like to be treated. Is one thing. Leaders don't recognize their people enough. We kind of expect people to do certain things. And one thing we know from recognition research is we're so focused on financial rewards, right? I give you a bonus. Maybe you're part of that, team that gets some, special perk, or you get some gift card to go do something as a recognition for great work. A simple, honest, sincere thank you from a manager, the I see you,
Yeah.
pays off in dividends. Employees remember that longer than if you give them a financial reward. Because you give me a financial reward, I pay my groceries with it, or I go out to dinner. It's once it's done, it's over. But if
Yeah.
somebody says something really sincere to me, like, see the value that you bring to this team, that sits with me and that drives my performance. So, in terms of positive organizational cultures, it's obviously not allowing toxic behavior to fester. And so if somebody on the team is particularly toxic, dealing with that, I think one of the things leaders don't do enough is take action on poor or disruptive performers that actually bring down the performance of the entire team. So that's a really important aspect. But then thinking about, what would inspire you to deliver great performance? What makes you want to come into the workplace? All these issues about return to office and do people want to work in hybrid workspaces? The fact of the matter is there's a segment of our workforce population that really likes working from home because they experience microaggressions in the workplace. And for those individuals, the workplace is not a safe environment. And it's really up to the leaders to make that a safe space for people and to call people on, when they're not being inclusive to others, when people, might be experiencing this. So I just think if we think about other people and how we want to be treated, and what would make us feel great about being part of a team and focusing on that, ask your employees, what gets you up every day? What makes you excited? What can we lean into more? Help people at what we call job craft. So what are the parts of the work that absolutely drain you, that like just take everything out of you? Let's do less of that. Let's give that to AI if we can. What are the parts of your job that bring you joy? And how do we lean more into that work? How do we help you bring the best of yourself? My book, The Inside Gig, is a lot about, how do we help people choose work that really drives their passion, which brings out greater employee engagement, which therefore drives organizational productivity. So I'm all about how to we find those things that help people bring their best selves to work and help them be the most productive individuals that they can be.
You've touched on so many important points in just that one answer, like what leadership, the ways they embed the organization, culture, recognition. But what I loved most about the response was ask the team members, ask your employees, get to understand what they feel, and not just think about what you're thinking and what your past experiences has been, what your mental model has been. Transform your thinking by just humbly asking inquiry about what people want. So I love that response. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's do a really quick rapid fire question round. What book do you recommend the most?
There's so many because, as you could tell, I read a lot. So it's kind of like asking me what's your favorite child. But I would say one book that I've been referencing a lot lately is Culture Renovation by Kevin Oakes from the Institute for Corporate Productivity. I'm a big research geek, so it's got a lot of research in it.
I have it.
You have that. Yeah. So that's a good one.
Okay. Gotcha. Fantastic. Thank you. What's one thing that people would love to or would be surprised to learn about you?
I'm a certified specialist of wine. So I have a wine certification.
Wow. See, with that national conference, you would have had, were you there for the happy hours?
I was. I know more wine than spirits, but yes, I'm a fun person to take to a restaurant because I can tell you all the obscure things on the list that nobody would know about, but are cheaper than the expensive, California or Bordeaux. So I know a lot about wine.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And lastly, how can our listeners connect with you?
Well, you can easily connect with me on LinkedIn, Edie Goldberg, pretty easy to find. Also, my website, www.elgoldberg.com. And you know what? If you just Google Edie, Edie Goldberg, I'm pretty easy to find.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you. Well, there you have it, folks. A fascinating conversation with Edie. I love everything that she brought on for our audience, and I hope you listen to this. And if you want to keep in touch, subscribe and watch it on YouTube and Spotify. Thank you, Edie, for being my guest. It's such an honor, such great wisdom and insight. I love that we have the same kind of thinking, and we are on the same path in terms of increasing returns and bringing that people-centric organizational cultures. Thank you.
I'm going to leave one shameless plug for everybody.
Absolutely.
My new performance enablement is coming out early next year, but it is available on Amazon for pre-order. So go ahead and pre-order your copy today.
Fantastic. I can't wait to read all about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.